as we're getting started. If you can, please make sure if you're making the motion that you just say your name and that you're making the motion, particularly for just because the screens do change a little bit over time. And then if you're seconding the motion, to please also just repeat your name. That way we can just make sure that we're accurately capturing this. So a little bit more formal than it's been in the past, but we appreciate it so that we can, again, ensure that this is being captured appropriately. Okay. All right, John. Well, we will turn it over to you.
All right. Thank you, Laura, and welcome everybody. By the way, I think this May 15th meeting of the Northern Virginia Soil and Water Conservation District Board is rather historic. Laura, you and Diane may know more than anybody, but I believe it's the first time in 75 years that the meeting has been held electronically. All other times, I believe they've been in person. So this is rather historic.
It is. It is. It's an unfortunate situation, but I'm glad that we can continue to carry on our business in this way.
I think everybody has received a copy of the agenda. Is there anybody that has anything they'd like to add to the agenda? Hearing nothing, let's proceed. We'll start with the minutes from February 25th. Monica? By the way, let the record show that all 5 directors are present.
Uh-oh. I think I lost John's voice.
What's that?
Oh, I'm sorry. I had lost your voice for a moment.
Are we still on?
We are still on. So, John, you may just need to repeat that
Monica is still connected.
I am.
This is the time for the minutes.
Yes. So I have reviewed the minutes, and I'd like to submit them for approval. Final.
We all received a copy of the minutes in what Heather sent out.
Yes. So I move to accept the minutes for the last meeting.
We have a motion to approve the minutes of the last meeting. Is there a second?
This is Adria. I second.
It's been moved and seconded that we approve the minutes of the last meeting. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Minutes are approved. Thank you, Monica. How about the treasurer's report, Chris? I think we have 3, in fact.
That's correct. This is Chris. I've reviewed the treasurer's report for the month of February, the month of March, the cumulative quarter with the reports from January through March, and have found them acceptable, very good, and submit them for board approval and for audit.
The treasurer's report doesn't need to be approved. We'll just accept it and file it for audit. Thank you, Chris. Now we're down, Adria, to the TRC recommendations of March 17th.
Yes, TRC recommendations. We had, that was way back when, and we had actually a report by our very capable Willie Wood, talking about the Virginia agricultural cost share funding opportunities. But just kind of noted that there were no more cost share projects in Fairfax County, and that we right now there's no need to set aside any amounts, and he noted that he's going to continue to work with someone, Amanda Pennington, who is working on a project. So currently Willie has no cost share opportunities. But Willie, you went over the Giles Run Meadow restoration? I'm trying to remember way back when.
Oh, we may need to take Willie off of mute here.
I did.
Okay. And we are going to talk a little bit more about the status of some of our cost share projects, as well as the potential transfer of the FY 2020 allocation after we wrap up here.
Yes, yes.
Is that all, Adria?
Do you want to talk about that right now, Laura? I'm sorry. Just give me a second, John.
No, we'll talk about that once we wrap up our the TRC summary, because we'll need to go into a little bit more detail with that.
Okay. All right. Willie, I'm wondering if we need to review anything about the 11.7 acre site of Giles Run Meadow restoration that you were talking about in the Laurel Hill area in Lerton.
Adria, I think it's just one of those that, as we've partnered with the Fairfax County Park Authority before, where we do a conservation plan, pretty much step-by-step procedure for them to be able to convert an existing vegetative field into probably a meadow or whatever objective of their choice. And that's another one of the 4 or 5 we've done in the past.
Right. And that, so if there's no discussion or no questions on that, and these notes were set out ahead of time, I'm going to make a motion to approve the Fairfax County Park Authority's ecological restoration plan for the Giles Run Meadow restoration at Laurel Hill in Lerton as presented.
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded. Who is the second?
That was Monica.
Hi, Monica. Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of approving the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed signify by saying nay. I'm sorry, did I step on somebody that wanted to oppose?
John, if
I thought Laura's text message said we had to say our name when we said aye, so I didn't want to step on Jerry.
no, actually, if we can, this is a good practice, and Debbie just reminded us, which I appreciate it very much, Debbie, is if we can go through just a roll call vote. That way, if anybody does have a nay, we can again accurately capture that in the minutes and in the recording as well, just in case. Okay. So, so the motion, just as a reminder, the motion was made by Adria Bordas and seconded by Monica Bilger. So if we want to just go through, Jerry.
You want me to ask the directors, Jerry?
If you will.
Yeah. Aye. Jerry says aye.
Chris?
Aye.
Adria?
Aye.
Monica?
Monica, yes. Aye.
Okay, we have, are there, all opposed to the motion signify by saying nay. Motion is approved. Now, I think we're down to one of those things that Adria touched on, and that's the authorization to transfer some ag cost share program funds that we can't use. I think we're going to keep the TA funds and send the rest off. Is that right?
Well, we're not quite there yet. There's still a little bit in the TRC summary to continue on with.
I thought she was done.
No, no worries.
No, I got it. So the Virginia Conservation Assistance Program, the VCAP applications, both Christina and Dan presented an overview of each project, and they respectively perform their site visits for, noting any problems or anything that needed to be solved. When we discussed it originally, Dan recommended deferring a decision on the location, and I'm looking at the number, so I'm matching it up in the matrix here so that I have it correct. On Draco Street, the last 3 digits of that applicant's number is 029. Dan, are you on the call with us? Did you get any additional information about this? We asked that that we kind of talk about this if you had any additional info.
Yes, I am on the call. That project was for a potential dry well. This homeowner actually had 2 projects. One of them was a conservation landscaping project, which the TRC did review. The other one was the dry well, and that's the one I said I wanted to do a little bit of extra work on. I did some extra soil tests. I'd been out there before to see if a rain garden was possible. It wasn't where I first looked because of high groundwater. So the applicant tried to move a little bit uphill and put in a dry well. But I wanted to test there too, since it wasn't very far away. I looked at the soil there and it doesn't look suitable as well. I relayed that to the homeowner. So they are pulling that dry well application and just moving forward with only the conservation landscaping.
Okay. So we will strike the dry well application for applicant 2/1/2020-09 on Draco Street in Burke. And other than that, I think that when we presented all the others, everyone was satisfactory, felt satisfactory with them. So I'm going to make a motion to approve the VCAP applications for submission to the VCAP steering committee. Other than that, not one listed with 029 as its last three digits.
We have a motion to approve the VCAP applications to the VCAP steering committee with that one exception. Is there a second?
This is Chris.
This is Jerry. I would second.
Then moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Roll call, John.
Well, let's call roll again. We'll start with, this time I'll start with Monica,
Aye.
Chris,
Yes.
Adria,
Aye.
Jerry.
Aye.
Motion is approved. Anything else, Adria?
We have one more payment. We need a motion to approve the reimbursement of VCAP project number 21-2020-007. Oh, 007.
007.
Which was a 425 square foot permeable pavement project. So I'd like to make a motion to approve reimbursement of project 007.
We have a motion to approve that permeable pavement project. Is there a second?
I'll second. This is Monica.
Been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. We'll start again. Chris,
Aye.
Jerry,
Aye.
Adria,
Aye.
Monica.
Aye.
It's been approved. Thank you. Adria, anything else?
Okay. Christina and Dan, do you guys have any other updates? I know that Christina, at the end of our conversation, you had given some updates on the VCAP steering committee budget and funding. Any other additional feedback on that?
Yeah, so one thing that has changed from March until now, we are working off of a wait list now for all projects. So the steering committee was able to meet in April, and some of our projects were contingently approved pending this board meeting. So now there are 2 or 3 projects from that March round that were approved that we can now approve, send approvals to the homeowners after we have this meeting. But after last month's meeting, we have about $120,000 in projects that are on a wait list. So we will be awaiting funds from several different sources. I believe they should be getting part of their state budget allocation on July 1st. DEQ, there's about $40,000 in the works being sent over from DEQ. So we'll be awaiting those funds. But we did get an update saying that this upcoming year, it'll probably be a challenge for cost share funds. There's a lot of cuts happening around the state. DEQ has already informed the Virginia Association that, that we might not be seeing as much couch cushion money being pushed our way. So I guess just as a heads up and looking into the future, that is sort of what that will look like.
This is Jerry, Christina. Have we heard anything from NVSWCD?
We have not. Well, in terms of receiving funding, we have not. The state coordinator has met with some folks from the NVSWCD office just to get a little bit of information on what they're looking for their projects this upcoming year. We don't have any more information in terms of that, but again, it's going to be another competitive year for NVSWCD just because a lot of people's budgets and grant funding is being cut in general.
Yeah.
So we'll see what happens. It'll be interesting.
Up in the air. Okay.
Yeah. And if you don't mind, one thing that I do want to just mention, and the board is aware of this because we did touch base prior to sending a letter and making a comment on the budget, is due to the COVID-19 and the revised budget that needed to take place within Fairfax County, one of the areas that the county executive did make the choice to cut was the environmental improvement program. So what was a very nice, it is a discretionary fund, which is available by the Board of Supervisors and administered by the Office for Environmental and Energy Coordination. There's about a $350,000 difference in what they needed to plan for. And so unfortunately, our conservation assistance program funds, the ones that we utilize for the homeowner associations, civic associations, and places of worship, has been cut for FY 2021. It is a difficult decision. Each one of the projects that we review that go into the EIP are absolutely worthy of being funded, and it was a choice and a decision that was made by the OEEC in order to try to do what's best, I suppose, for the county. The one bit of good news is that we will have a little bit of carryover funds from this year into FY 2021. And we can utilize those to continue to work with some of the communities, groups, and places of worship that are currently already active. And so we'll be able to at least be able to continue to work that way. And we're going to continue, of course, to look for additional funds locally to be able to support the program. So not great news. It's disappointing for sure, but I appreciate the board's support and Christina's support. It's certainly not a reflection of the value of the program. It's just a difficult decision that had to be made. But I appreciate the fact that we were able to provide a written comment during the open comment period. So,
Laura, Chris, whoever was doing it, do we have any applicants who are getting stiffed by this decision? Anybody on board that we have to tell to wait? Do we have any pending applications?
I'm going to ask Ashley to take Christina off here. Not that I am aware of, but Christina, perhaps you can.
Yeah, I mean, we have a couple, all of the projects that we've approved up till now, their funding has been allocated. So we have enough for all of those projects. We did a little bit of the rough math with Laura last week. We probably have about $30,000 to $40,000 in remaining rollover funds into FY21. So we'll be able to allocate a couple of projects, with that. But
it's actually going to be about 21,000. So not quite that much,
yeah.
but it's still an ample enough amount of money to be able to support us. So
if we get some really worthy projects, we can take care of them.
Yes,
absolutely.
We can. And one of the things, again, this is a conversation that I hope to have with Christina. But the one thing is, if we do work with some of the stormwater planning, for example, or some of the other groups, those funds would primarily go to watershed-based projects as opposed to the energy projects. So there's some new endeavors that are going on. So maybe that's not going to be as much of a presence for us anymore. But again, there's still some conversations that need to be had, and we appreciate everybody's patience as we work through it. But the good news is our program is not going away, but that particular source of fund is depleted at this point. So they're encouraging us to apply again, and we will do that. But hopefully we can continue to work with some other partners as well. So stay tuned.
John, as difficult as it's been for the county to deal with the budget, it's difficult for the state also. And if you've been following some of the things that our state association has been sending out, I think we're likely to see some cuts in other areas that are going to affect us too. By the way, I would just mention that we had a state association teleconference on the 13th. They commended Christina and Laura and our district hosting the VCAP Webex technical committee meetings that you've been holding. So we appreciate that very much.
I cannot take any credit. I know Christina is on mute right now, so I'll speak for her for just a second. But it's all Christina, and she's been wonderful at helping us navigate this virtual world. So many thanks to her.
So that's credit to the district. I think
Very
we're down.
good.
I hope we're down to taking a look at transferring some of our state ag cost share funds to another district in area 2. Is that right? Is Willie going to talk about that?
Yes, he is. And Ashley, if we can make Willie the presenter, and Willie, we're going to turn it over to you. He does have a presentation. If you all will kindly hold questions until the end. So again, that we can make sure that we're capturing everything.
And we did get a copy of his proposal in our packet.
You have a copy of, yes, of the explanation of the fund transfer. Willie is going to provide a little bit more of an oversight of the status of our current ag cost share projects as well. So with that, Willie, the floor is yours.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, for the record, this is Willie Wood. And the district was able to put in line 3 potential cost share practices for program year 2020. However, with the onset of COVID-19, several situations came up that caused us to consider proposing that we move these 3 projects into program year 2021. And our funds is what we're going to talk about passing over to a sister district to use in their projects on the other side. However, I just want to give a quick rundown on what we actually had in terms of practices. The 3 practices we had in mind were the Jarvis stable. I hope you can see my slide. Jarvis,
Willie, I think
yes.
we need to share your screen.
Okay.
So we'll have to do that funny little arrow in the box.
Yes, I thought I did that. Okay, let me
Start your broadcast.
Share screen. How about now?
There it is.
Okay, so yes, the 3 projects we were looking at were the Jarvis stable in Lerton for an animal waste management facility, and that's in the Mount Vernon district. And then the Maze Properties 4 LLC in Great Falls for a stream exclusion with wide buffer in the Drainsville district, and the Grounded in Nature Farm in Fairfax Station for an SL6, which is a stream exclusion with narrow buffer in the Springfield district. As mentioned, all of these could not be done because of the COVID-19 for specific reasons, such as with Governor Northam's temporary stay-at-home order, we had to slowly back off making the site visits. And also, Amanda Pennington, who was supposed to do site visits before designing the animal waste facility, and the SL6, which had stream crossing involved in it, could not make those visits to do the site assessment and do the necessary survey that is necessary before the design work starts. Let me just quickly run down give you a background on some of those sites that we looked at. For instance, the Jarvis property is what you see on your screen, showing what looks like a, I don't know, gun-like structure. If you look at the southern area, field number 7, that field is no longer being used because, as part of the stable operation, because the property owner, Jarvis Martin, sold this piece off. It's about 16 acres and is concentrating all of his activity in the northern section of his property. He had 35 horses on what was once about 43 acres in all. But now he's left with about 25 acres in the northern portion, where he still board about 35 horses a year. The next slide will be zeroing on this area with the red ring, because that's what we'll be talking about. But before we get to that, just want to give you some highlights that yes, he has 35 horses on 25 acre, and he doesn't board all of his horses. Some of them are kept outside in the field 24/7. Thus, we have high concentration of waste on his pasture fields, poor quality pasture vegetation, and significant erosion across the fields. And he's located in the headwaters of Cane Creek, a tributary that's called Thompson Creek that goes in that southwest direction. Justification for his waste management system is not the typical one wherein his waste is left by the side of a creek and is washing downstream. But what I observed was that in as much as he had in the little green square you see there, he had a pull on and pull off dumpster that takes his waste away. The high concentration of animals cause a lot of droppings on all of these fields. The quality of pasture is poor, and so we needed to improve the soil tilth, improve the soil, the water holding capacity, enhance the vegetation, and protect this 1,200 linear feet of RPA that you probably can see in the southern boundary of his property. So where we have that red circle, if you remember the green square, you see that's where his dumpster stands. And where it says barn is actually stalls and internal indoor riding ring. My proposal to him was to build a composting facility in this area that has blue square, so that he'll be able to collect some of his waste, compost it, turn around and spread on his fields. Because once the dumpster material is taken away, he's left with nothing. Soil is compacted, high runoff, and excess manure is being washed into the RPA in the south. So this is what we're looking at him, which is a multi-cell composting facility. And just as a backdrop, this is what his dumpster looked like. I believe he only gets material from his barn. And if you look at the background, you can see most of the droppings out there, and the status of his fields. Again, high concentration of horses, lots of waste, as you can see in the background field there. Another picture of his field. This was taken in winter time, and granted, winter is not the best time to look at pastures, but you can see how vulnerable his fields are in terms of erosion into the Thompson Creek. I went there again in spring, attempted to show you what this field looks like when vegetation begins to come up. As you can see, it's almost 70% buttercups, bare ground, and again, just horse waste all over. This is an attempt to just close up of what it really looks like as a pasture. Lots of weeds, virtually no grass is start to talk about. Our next project was that of the Maize Property 4 LLC, wherein it's about 68 acres and about animals, some cows and goats running around. Our proposal was to fence off this 5-acre lake that is on the southern side of the property, because the cows like to come down this lower portion of the property just to cool out under the trees and stay away from the hot burning sun. So as again, a backdrop for this, they had about 7 cows, 50 goats, chickens and ducks on a 68-acre property. 5-acre wet pond which has RPA all around. Cows like to hang out down there. And the justification is to have 2,600 linear feet of stream exclusion fence that would improve water quality while keeping the animals out of the sensitive RPA. It's an example of the type of fencing we were proposing. A third and final potential project was at the Lombardozzi mini farm. Is also called the Grounded in Nature farm. This one is in Fairfax Station, and it has about 4 horses, about 20 goats, and some chickens on a 6.5-acre property. The area of concern was right here where we see this red and black line, where we propose to have a stream crossing, because the horses come from the sacrifice area into field number 3 and like to hang out in the creek, leave their droppings there, and that gets washed downstream. In addition, with the high traffic of these animals, there's severe bank erosion taking place here. Now, at our next slide, if you keep in mind field number 3, you're going to see a view from this western field across into this eastern or northeastern field. By the way, there are 2 crossings. There's one here and another one about 200 feet down. I chose to propose this as the potential crossing site because the reach of the stream is the straightest here. By the time it gets further downstream, it begins to meander, which is not a good place to have a stream crossing for animals. And this is what a stream crossing looks like generally, and that's what we hope it would look like once we have it installed. It would have hardened access back and forth, would have gates to keep the horses out of this sensitive area, or keep them out of that area if they're in this field in the foreground. The stream crossing would also consist of a cross fencing that would keep the horses from wandering upstream, both upstream and downstream. And so this is the projects we had for them. But because of the COVID-19 situation, we're proposing to pass our funds over to Loudoun County Soil and Water Conservation District, where they'll be using our funds at the Ashman Farm, Hutchinson Farm, Avila's Farm, and Statinuous Farm. They all are screening off, fencing off streams and bringing water into the fields. And these are just the length of fencing and length of piping and number of troughs that each of these projects would have, and a rough idea of how much the cost of these projects would be in Loudoun County.
Really?
Yes.
Going
yes,
back
sir.
to that third project of ours, would that project include fencing off the second crossing?
Well, there's going to be, yes, it will be fencing off what was the second crossing. We're going to stop that second crossing from being that crossing is. I hope you can see my cursor. It's somewhere here. So the purple line will be the fencing that we plan to put and confine the horses to come through this area across into the sacrifice area. So the fence will stretch from this portion all the way up onto that portion, and another fencing will come from here all the way down to here. It's just access through the stream crossing which we talked about.
Willie,
Okay, so,
John, you're recommending we transfer all of our ag cost share funds except for the TA amount. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Yes. So, and this is Laura. I just wanted to mention that I really appreciate the work of Debbie in helping us to identify some neighboring districts that were interested in utilizing our ag cost share funds. As Willie mentioned, he's been working very diligently, and I wanted to compliment him on the fact that he has been identifying Fairfax County that would be eligible for the use of our funds, our allocation, I should say. But given the unfortunate situation with COVID-19, even if we were to be able to get all of our ducks in a row, it still gives just a small amount of time in order to implement the practices. So we do think that it is within our best interest and within the best interest of the overall program to transfer them this year. And Loudoun Soil and Water, as Willie mentioned, has those 3 projects, all that are within the Pohick watershed, and within the documents that were provided demonstrate and show where those possible projects are located. So several of them are within Goose Creek, and then Clark's Run, as well as Stockton Creek. As you may know, Goose Creek also has a TMDL on it for bacteria, among other things. And so it does also provide a number of different water quality benefits as well. So what we are essentially requesting is that the board authorize the transfer of the full amount of the district's program year 2020 ag cost share allocation to the Loudoun Soil and Water Conservation District without TA funds, and in support of the 6 SL6 projects that they are requesting. And again, really do appreciate Debbie's work and helping us to navigate through this as well. So as you've seen in the document, supporting document, the total amount of allocation that would be transferred to Loudoun Soil and Water is $68,721.
Do we have a motion to transfer the $68,721 of our ag cost share funds to Loudoun?
I'll second.
Is there a second?
This is Adrian. I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none, again, let's call the vote. Monica,
Aye.
Chris,
This
I'll
is
come back to Chris. Adria,
Adria. Aye.
uh, uh, um, Chris,
Jerry.
well, he's
Let me make sure that we've
Yeah.
got, let me make sure we've got Chris on here still. Ashley, would you mind unmuting call in user number 2? That might be Chris. Call in user 2, is that Chris Corner?
It might be.
How do you vote on the transfer of the funds? Too loud.
For some reason, my router has lost my internet connection, so I missed all of Willie's great presentation, but I could hear it all.
Oh, well, good. Chris, I just changed your name on our little list so we can see you. And we'll make sure to have you off of mute here too. But we can certainly follow up with you and make sure that you're up to date on the wonderful work that Willie has been doing.
Well, the board has unanimously voted to transfer the funds. So thank you, Willie, for your presentation. I think, Laura, we're down now to our temporary telework stipend policy.
Yes, the next two items are related to the COVID-19. And actually, I am going to ask Willie to stop presenting here, if you will, so we can see each other again. But you should have the information. It was part of the packet that was distributed by Heather. Thanks, Heather. Item number 5 is a telework stipend policy. As you all know, in response to Governor Northam's stay-at-home order due to COVID-19, it required all of us to rapidly change the way that we work, including migrating over to remote work locations. As a district, we had not had time to adequately prepare and ensure that all of our staff had district issued equipment, and therefore they have been having to utilize their own personal equipment, services and resources in order to maintain our operations and also just maintain a reasonable level of service. As you all know, we have changed things just a little bit. Since this is an exceptional case, to me, and I hope you all will agree that a stipend does make sense for the use of these personal properties, much like folks may be using their personal vehicle for business-related travel, because it is a necessity of the job. So where the Virginia Department of Accounting has actually some similar rates for use of personal mobile devices and services. And the stipend, as you'll see, continued within the document, does also include some assumptions that are made for the use of personal computers, printers, printer supplies, and internet services. So this would be a policy that I am recommending for addition to our policy document. While we definitely can see it utilized immediately for this temporary situation that we are in related to COVID-19. Should there be in the future another emergency situation in which we would have to utilize something like this again, this gives us the flexibility to be able to enact it. So the policy that I am recommending is when an exceptional situation requires staff to work remotely for an extended period of time through executive order or by decision of the district board of directors, a telework stipend of $75 per month be provided to staff working at a 3/4 to 1 full-time equivalent and $65 for part-time staff and that are less than 3/4 time FTE. So, and throughout the period defined by the order or the decision, again, made by the board of directors. So again, the document includes the assumptions that are used there and looking into average costs of internet service and things like that. So with that, I am recommending that the board establish a telework policy and incorporate it into our district policy document effective immediately. And again, you'll see, well, we can go with that one first, and then there is a second motion, which would be to authorize me to use the computer replacement dedicated reserve at this point to cover the telework stipends for district staff, beginning backtracking to April 1st until the end of Governor Northam's temporary stay-at-home order, which was originally put in place through June 10th. So that would be about 2 and a quarter months. So
we actually, Laura, would have two motions.
would be two
And
motions.
the first one, just so the board knows, Laura and I have discussed at some length. First of all, before we discuss it, we do need a motion to actually establish the telework stipend policy and incorporate it into our policy document. Is there such a motion?
Well, okay, I guess we can discuss it after we move.
I'll make the motion.
That's Monica
That's Adria.
or Adria.
Sorry.
Since you, Monica, say it second.
It's been moved and seconded that we established a telework stipend policy and incorporate it into our policy document. Any further discussion?
Yes. I thought I understood that the policy would terminate when the governor's order changes, and I don't think we're all going to go necessarily back to work the way we used to be immediately. Are we going to be cutting people off before they quit using their home offices that way?
That is a good question. It can absolutely be extended if the board would like to extend it.
Can I make an addendum to that motion? If we, or maybe or say something, or maybe we're still in a discussion, Chair, that we extend this teleworking option as long as our county executive extends the teleworking option, because I feel, and this is definitely discussion, and we can take down that motion and make another, but I definitely feel like we may be in a even more of a phased return with the county executive, more so than the governor. I don't know how Laura feels about that, but I've been in some leadership team meetings where that's been a conversation.
Yes, I would absolutely agree. If
Is that a proposed amendment?
That's a proposed amendment, or I can remove the motion.
Is there a second?
If you want me to remove the motion.
If I can make a clarification, John, this first motion would be just to establish the policy. The second motion would be to establish the terms for the current situation.
Okay.
So I think the way I'm hearing it, there are people that think the establishment of the policy needs to be expanded just a bit.
Would you like me to read the language real quick here?
We know what yours said.
Okay.
And that's what Jerry's point was.
Well, my question really now is the cutoff in the second motion or the first?
The second.
Okay, so the first is fine as far as I'm concerned, but I think
if there is a cutoff in the second.
Right. And Adria's point is absolutely well taken, because the governor has already told Northern Virginia that our counties can go longer than the rest of the state. So, yeah, I would agree with Adria on that point.
Adria, is your point more relative to the second motion?
Yes.
Yes, sir. Sir Chair, I would like to continue on and vote on the first motion then, and I'll make a second motion if you'd like.
All right. We have a motion and a second to establish the policy. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
One at a time.
And again, I'll try to go back. Monica? Adria?
Aye.
Jerry?
Aye.
The motion carries. Now we're down to the second motion, which would authorize the executive director to use computer replacement dedicated reserve to cover those stipends.
John, will you please check to see if Chris's vote as well, Chris Corner?
Aye.
Chris? I thought I heard him.
Chris? Oh, no, I didn't say anything. I was waiting for my name, which never came.
Sorry about that. We're not trying to stifle you, Chris. Did you vote aye?
Yes, I did.
Thank you. We have it, Laura?
We have it. Thank you.
Now we're down to the second motion.
Okay. I'll just reread again the motion, the recommended motion. And again, this was prepared back in April. So things have changed since it was originally prepared. But the recommended motion is to authorize the executive director to utilize the computer replacement dedicated reserve to cover telework stipends for the district staff beginning on April 1st and until the end of Governor Northam's temporary stay-at-home order due to the COVID-19.
You've heard the motion. You've heard the recommended motion. Is there a move to accept?
Do we amend first or we just accept it?
We can do it either way. I think it's going to be simple.
I would like to make an amendment to that motion.
All right.
Or the recommendation that we add that our county executive's recommendations to as a phased telework extend those funds as long as needed.
Adria, would you amend it to say until the end of Governor Northam's temporary stay-at-home order or the county executive's order, whichever is longer?
Yes, sir.
Something along those lines?
No problem, John. Let me just think in my head how I'm going to say this.
While you're thinking, Adria, this opening up is supposed to be in phases, and I'm wondering how the different phases would affect our staff's operations.
Okay, so
we might need this stipend well past the initial phase 1 opening, do you think?
absolutely, yes. Laura and I have been in different meetings. I'm sure she's heard the same thing. Even when we do come back, I've been asked for a plan, how many physical bodies I absolutely need in the office and what my plan would be. And I'm sure Laura has been asked the same thing. So what I'm alluding to is we may as a staff go 2 days in, 3 days out, or 3 days in, 2 days out teleworking. And I'm sure that Laura's been asked the same thing. Laura?
Yes, I think, at this point, there is absolutely a transition that's going to take place for our group as well. We don't have that all completely firmed up at this particular time. However, there is, even right now, there is the option for staff to go in one by one. You'll see Willie in the office today, for example, and utilize that space. However, the true stay-at-home order, which is being recommended, has been driven by Governor Northam for the most part. So that's been an easy way of kind of being able to tag along. I would say we can always revisit this and we can always extend it by board vote. And so what I might recommend is that right now, the stay-at-home order for Fairfax County and for Northern Virginia has been extended until May 28th. So there's still a little uncertainty whether or not that will be extended further. But the board does have the authority to be able to extend this particular policy to whatever end time you would prefer. So what I might recommend is we could extend this through the end of June. And at our June meeting, we can talk at that point. We should have a little bit more information that I can share with you and prepare in terms of our transition back into the office. It is a conversation I certainly want to have with staff, and I can have more information by the June timeframe.
We also have another board meeting on May 26th, so we could think about it between now and then too.
I do hope to be able to have a conversation with staff before then, or by the May 26th meeting. But I can certainly say that we'll have a little bit more certainty, I would like to say, about what's happening within the region by the end of June. So again, I would recommend that we extend this to the end of June, which would put this out as a 3-month stipend from April 1st to the end of June, which really, again, this is, I will say on behalf of staff that we really appreciate that you all would take all of this into consideration. So thank you very much.
So for today, after the word until, we say the end of June?
Yes, until June 30th, which would be that end date. And again, if you want, we can even add some language in there stating unless further extended by the NVSWCD Board of Directors.
Good. That's Adria's amendment. Adria, is that okay with you?
Okay, so moved.
We have a motion to accept the amended motion. We have a move to accept the amended motion. Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved
Jerry.
and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none, let me call the roll. All in favor signify by saying aye. Jerry?
Roll. No, sorry.
All in favor signify by saying aye. Jerry, aye?
Yes, I said aye. Aye.
I'm sorry. Monica?
Aye.
Chris? I heard Monica, I think. Chris?
Chris says aye.
And Adria.
Aye.
The motion is accepted as amended. Thank you, Laura, very much.
Thank you.
I think we're down to the medical leave and emergency paid sick leave policy next.
Yes, that's correct. So we have not had a board meeting since all of this took place. And so we've not had a chance to approve some of our various policies, although we have had to follow them. As you know, let's see, Chris Corner just left the meeting. I'm not sure if he got kicked off or maybe he has joined us again. Sorry, real quick, Ashley, would you mind unmuting Chris?
There you go.
Okay, is Chris Corner still on?
Yes,
Okay.
I'm back the way I'm supposed to be, and I can see your lovely office.
Okay, wonderful. Okay, so soil and water conservation districts do fall under the necessity to comply with the Family First Coronavirus Response Act. And what this act essentially does is assist our employees that may be or have been affected by the COVID-19 outbreak with job protected leave and pay when appropriate. So the policy actually has been in effect since April 1st, 2020, and will continue to be in effect until December 31st, 2020. So our current existing leave policies will also still apply for any other reasons that may take place that are outside of the COVID-19 and coronavirus policies. So some of you may know that the two extended policies and leave policies that fall under the Families First Act are the extended FMLA, Family Medical Leave Act, as well as emergency paid sick leave. And there are certain conditions that do apply to each of those. And depending upon whether they're caring or have been affected and are recovering or working through the virus, kicks them into particular pay rates as well. So this policy essentially is just our district stating that we will follow the Family First Corona Response Act. This was prepared originally by the Thomas Jefferson Soil and Water Conservation District. And so we appreciate the fact that we've been able to just change their name and put ours in, but it has been reviewed, I believe, by the as well by the OAG's office and is consistent with what we would expect. So this would be a temporary policy that we would put into place within our policy document that again just outlines what as a district we will be doing and what rights our employees have and the safeguards that we put in place. So the recommended motion would be to approve the expanded FMLA and emergency paid sick leave policy and include it within our policy document as well. So, and again, the policy expires on December 31st, 2020.
You've heard the recommended motion. Is there a move to accept?
Yes, I would move it, Jerry.
Jerry has moved to accept. Is there a second?
This is Adria, second.
Adria has seconded. We have a motion and it's been seconded. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, let me again call the roll and all in favor signify by saying aye. Monica?
Aye.
I think that was aye. Monica? Chris?
Chris says aye.
Jerry?
Jerry is aye.
Adria?
Aye.
Unanimously accepted. Motion is approved. Thank you. Laura, anything else on policy changes or things that we need to actually approve?
No, at this point, that is it for policies. Again, we appreciate your thoughtful responses and thinking through these different policies and again supporting the staff. We hope we don't have to employ the family first policy again. We hope everybody stays safe, but it's nice to know that it's there.
One of the other things that we had on the old agenda was an authorization to have one of the directors act on behalf of the board in emergency situations. And Jerry and I have talked about that just in the last day or so, as has Laura. I'm not sure we really need that now, although it might be something we would need later, but I think we'll have plenty of time later if we do need it to actually adopt it then. But the whole reason for that policy, many of our conservation district boards in the Commonwealth have had to have somebody act to deal with their ag cost share decisions and their farm plan decisions in the interim. And they needed somebody to act when they couldn't get together in person. And before electronic means were authorized, but we've already taken care of that one item we had today. So Jerry, I think you're off the hook a little bit unless Laura wants to talk about this some more.
No, I think this virus did hit at a critical time for many districts, but I do think that because this agenda again was prepared prior to the advent of the electronic meeting opportunity, and so we do now have the opportunity to continue moving on, so it is no longer necessary.
Let me add one other piece of new business before we get on to our partners. And we do have 3 of our partners with us today, and we'll talk to those folks in a bit. We did get all of their partner reports, but the new business, many of you might have seen something Kendall sent out this morning. The NACD Urban RPG is also going ahead with their Conservation District Technical Assistance Grants one more time. And I think at least one conservation district in Virginia, the Thomas Jefferson District, wants to submit a proposal that I think I would like to ask our board and Laura and the staff, do we feel strongly that we'd like to submit a proposal or not? Or are we just going to support the TJ proposal?
I'm not sure that we've put too much thought into it at this point, John. I would support the Thomas Jefferson proposal, but I don't think we have. I can say that as staff, we haven't thought too much into it at this point.
Okay.
I would ask Adria. Adria, you probably are more plugged into urban agriculture than the rest of us. Do you see anything out there that we could be doing?
Well, I mean, some of the things that we are doing with the Fairfax Food Council, we may be able to find some opportunities there, but I think a lot of things in a way have been put on hold, like face-to-face wise. So I can talk with Laura offline a little bit more about this, and we can.
You might do that, Adria. I think, though, we're running short of time, too, to get an application in, and there's going to be some staff time involved in that.
Oh, okay.
Sure.
So, and Laura would talk just a little bit. If we do have something we'd like to recommend, we ought to get it in. Otherwise, I don't have any problem with the TJ proposal.
I may be looking a little. I may be thinking of 2 different grant opportunities that are out right now. If I'm understanding, the RPG Technical Assistance Grant was mostly focused on technical assistance for several of the NRCS programs.
Yes.
Okay, and then there is another urban agriculture grant that is also being sponsored by USDA and NRCS, and that may be one, Adria, that has come forward just more recently. That would be great, perhaps, to work with you and the Fairfax Food Council on. And Willie may have already seen that as well, but we'll convene a group and see if there's an opportunity for Fairfax County.
And down the road, there'll even be a third. There is a USDA urban ag group that's been formed that has $5 million, I think, and about $4 million of that is going to go to grants for which districts can compete. So we might have another opportunity there down the road.
That's great. That's great.
Do any of the other directors have anything they'd like to bring up at this point? Let me just run down the list again. I'll start with Jerry.
No, I'm fine. Nothing new.
Adria?
I'd like to just say that there was a news report maybe about a week ago, about giant Asian murder hornets. And I, along with all the other extension agents across the Commonwealth, have been flooded with questions because European hornets are very active right now. They're emerging and they fly. They are quite large and scary as well, and they will be aggressive towards you if you are aggressive towards them. But I have received at least over 30 plus emails from across different sources asking about it. And the Virginia Tech Department of Entomology and our insect ID lab put out a resource site for it, and I can either put it in the chat box or something, but there is no way, unless this thing traveled in a storage container, that it flew 2,800 miles from Seattle, Washington area to here since fall 2019. Overall, the panic is that this insect would be aggressive to humans, but in general, the most thing that people are afraid of is that they attack a honeybee hive, and they are aggressive on honeybees. And so they will kill honeybees and feed on their hive. So when the hive is older at the end of the season, they will feed on the young and the brood that is inside the hive, and so that is the main concern. As far as all the ones that I've seen, these poor European hornet dead things that I've seen, as far as pictures have been sent to me, all of them have been European hornets. So just kind of putting that out there. Also, our master gardeners, where they would have done plant clinics at farmers markets and libraries, we're going to have weekly events, at least 3 each week. And we'll have a schedule for that where people can register and go online with us with Zoom and have an interactive virtual plant clinic, kick it off with a topic, and then folks can ask questions and submit questions in advance. We'll have a registration in advance for that with a link, and I'll send that out, and I know that you guys will help me promote it. And if there's anything I can do for the virtual garden tour coming up, I know that we have a lot of people excited about that. So please let me help you guys promote that. And thanks.
Anything else, Adria?
No, I think that's it. We're hanging in there with extension. You know, we're doing the same thing that the Soil and Water District staff is doing. We're all teleworking. Larika, my admin assistant, and I go into the office about once a week to do deposits and any other signatures that need to happen. Sometimes we're actually there together, and it's great to see her, but sometimes we actually leave things for each other, just because our building, just like the Harity building, is closed to the public, and we've been trying to do as much social distancing as possible.
It's very interesting to see how Virginia Tech, with all its departments and activities, opens this fall if they can.
Yeah, I've read a lot of articles recently, and I'm a little. I have heard that the all of the public university presidents are going to get together and make an announcement probably next week. So,
Thank you, Adria.
no
Chris?
problem. Thanks.
We see you, Harry. We're gonna. I know we'll get to you.
We'll get to the associates just a minute. Chris?
Nothing, John. Thank you.
Monica? Did we lose Monica? Well, let me go then to the associates, and we'll start with Harry.
Oops, hold on, Harry. We need to unmute you.
Monica's muted also.
I'm here.
I'm sorry. Is that Monica?
Yeah, I'm here.
Do you have anything else?
I did not. No, thank you.
Okay. Now we'll start with the associate directors that I know are on the line. I think there's at least 2. Harry?
I'm sorry.
John, I think Monica did have one thing she wanted to share.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I just don't know if all of you had seen, there's been, an increase in trash. There's been a lot of reports about how Nova's in identifying with a 40% increase in trash. And part of that is due to the fact that they haven't had the ability to put recyclables away. And I do believe that Alexander's been particularly hit, because I think there may even be a lawsuit coming about dumping that's going into Hunting Creek. So the trash flow. So I think that we just need to be aware, and maybe some messaging in the future about trash is going to be re-emphasizing that is really important.
Anything else, Monica?
That's all.
Before we leave, I hope Monica has agreed to actually serve now on the Chesapeake Bay Restoration Fund Advisory Committee, the position I've been in. I think Senator Saslaw is going to recommend her appointment. Have you agreed to accept that, Monica?
So I have, but it's Senator Serval, and I'm not sure if.
Oh, I'm sorry, Serval?
Yeah, but I also think Eben is supposed to be putting in the name, but I haven't heard from him.
Yeah, and they think they'll make that appointment, and it takes effect, if you're the one selected, it takes effect July 1.
Yes, sir.
At any rate, I'm glad you chose to at least offer your name, because I think it's a very worthwhile thing to do. I've served on that committee for the last 12 years, and I've really felt it was one that was important to be on.
Thank you, John.
Shall we start now with our associates? Harry?
Well, give us just a moment. I think Ashley.
Okay, I'm on now, right?
Oh, yep, there you are.
Okay, I actually have a question for Adria regarding her reports on the hornets. What steps are being taken to lessen the effect on honeybees? Honeybees are not native, they're European, but they're very important to our agriculture. And if we are going to lose honeybees through the effects of this hornet, I presume we're taking steps, we being the whole country, is taking steps. It's not as if we have nothing else to do in this country at the moment, but taking steps to reduce the effect of those hornets on our honeybee population. Any comments, Adria? Over.
Well, I was hoping that the spotted lanternfly and this murder hornet would have it out together, and that they would just have a battle royale in the hexagon cage. But I don't think that's going to happen. You know, honeybees have been at risk with a lot of things, with the varroa mites, with neonicotinoids, with just stress of honeybees being set out in an almond field, and that's all they're expected to eat. So I think that this is just another way that we are educating the public of the importance of our food supply, of pollinators, and that honeybees are not the only pollinator. But I think that some beekeepers, I've heard, in that area in British Columbia and the Pacific Northwest actually took some of their hives indoors, where they were keeping them. Oh, look, we have a lovely webinar on honeybees next Tuesday on Webex by the Soil and Water District. But I do think that the awareness is out there, and that there are a lot of other things. The state actually has this honeybee hive registration system where you can register your hives on a system with Virginia Department of Agriculture. So applicators, pesticide applicators, and beekeepers are more in conversation together, and about applications, if they're nearby their hives, and where they're setting their hives out and which fields. Because as you know, honeybees often commute in some respects from one agricultural production to another. You know, in California, they start in Southern California early season and move up, and you'll see trucks of beehives moving all along that corridor of California, and where heavy agricultural production is going on. So I guess that's a roundabout answer that I don't have an answer, but those are the things that I do know, Harry. And I like to also share that I'm just as concerned because, you know, we need to encourage pollinators, grow pollinator plants. Don't just grow your vegetable plants, put pollinator flowers, big things out there for them to feed on early on in the season. It's good to have succession of your pollinator plants all around.
Well, that's good. I thank you, Adria, for that report. And also that if count on you to keep us informed on whatever else comes out about all this. I have suddenly become, not suddenly, become really interested in bee populations. And I'm getting pretty good at identifying them when they're on my plants and flowers. And now I'm very concerned about honeybees, which I never really cared about before. But I think it's important. So keep us informed if you wouldn't mind, please.
You got it, Harry.
That's all.
Anything else, Harry?
No, that's
John, could I say something to Adria? Did you see there's a video out there of a praying mantis that caught a murder hornet and just ate it apart.
Oh, how lovely. I'll have to look that up.
What we need is more praying mantis.
there are a couple of kinds of praying mantis. One is a Chinese version and one is an American version. Which one can you, if you can remember, which one that took the hornet down?
I wasn't looking at that carefully.
Okay, well, we are more interested, of course, in the native mantis. We can find them. Again, older.
Diane is on, I think. Diane, did you have something to offer today?
No, I'm enjoying the meeting. Thank you, John. Nothing to say.
Laura, do we have any of the other associates on?
Well, I don't believe so. We have some partners. We have
Well,
Jim.
I'll get to the
and-
partners right now. Yep.
Okay.
We'll
Great.
start with Debbie, since I think Debbie is still on, or at least I hope she is.
Yeah, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes.
So you have my April report, even though it says March on it.
I do.
A couple of things that I'll say really quickly. The Soil and Water Board meetings were canceled for April and March. So their meeting is going to be May the 20th. They plan to have an electronic meeting. And at that point in time, they will be covering 3 months meetings worth. So they do have the board packet out. They'll be looking at policies for both administration and operations, as well as cost policies. They'll be looking at the fiscal year 21 the VAX program manual and also grant agreements. So that's going to be a really significant meeting. Again, it's going to be electronic that, but the public would be certainly any one of us could call in and listen. I suspect we would be muted, but we would be able to at least listen to what's going on. So that's a big deal. The auditors did finish their work, and the audit subcommittee will be meeting just prior to the Soil and Water Board meeting at 9 o'clock on the 20th. And so they will be looking at the results of those audits. This was the first time we used the auditors, CLA, Clifton, Larson, and Allen, I believe, was what CLA stands for. There were some hiccups, as you can imagine, with a new auditing firm. But all in all, I think it went pretty well. We did do new director orientation with a webinar. Appreciate the directors from your district participated in that. It's just been uncertain and unusual times, and we're all just adapting and trying to be flexible. It has been quite an experience for me being a person that's on the road often, to be sitting behind a computer from 7:30 to 5 each day. I certainly know now that I chose the career that I needed to be out, not in my office. I'm still working from home. The DCR offices are open. They're not open to the public, but I could go to the office. But I have a great niece that has some immune issues, so I've chosen to work from home and will continue to work from home. And once I brought everything home, my cashier manual and all my district files, I'm like, I'm not taking them back and forth. It's either one or the other. So I'm working at home. Most all the trainings that we had planned have now either been canceled, postponed, or changed to a webinar. And I suspect we're going to continue to see this in the future. I think this is important, and that is that we did receive a letter from Clyde Chrisman, and in Executive Order 51, it gave agency heads the ability to be able to make some significant changes on deadlines and regulations. So he worked with the Soil and Water Board, but made a decision to relax several of the grant agreement deliverables, and also to determine that there would even be some deliverables that will not be measured in this grant. So I think with those actions that he made, we're not encouraging districts to move ahead and continue to do those deliverables, but you won't be, they won't be held against in the evaluation for the fiscal year. So I think I was very pleased that we were able to do that for districts. It's been very difficult time. And the other thing, we're still waiting for guidance from the Office on electronic meetings. I would say that I'm very proud of you for going forward, reading what's in the legislation and just following what's in the legislation. I did hear the other day that we might not actually get guidance. What we might see come out is another opinion from the General Assembly for all public bodies, not specifically. So, you know, that legislation was passed on April the 24th. It was signed by the governor on April the 24th. So that was 3 weeks ago today. That no guidance. So I kind of think we're on our own right now. So I think y'all have done a really marvelous job. I'm quite impressed with this Webex. This is the first time that I've sat through a meeting on it. And, you know, we can make this work. You know, we'll get there. Good job.
I think the one thing is we need to not be so comfortable with this because I miss you guys.
Yeah, you were kind of coming in and out, and I think most of us got a lot of what you said. But Laura, is this the year that we're audited again?
It will be, yes, at the end of this calendar year, it will be for the end of this particular fiscal year. If
Right.
I can just make sure, Debbie, if I can paraphrase what I think I heard you say, is that you mentioned that many of the trainings that have been scheduled have either been canceled, changed in date, or will be held electronically, including things like the next year's agricultural cost share program, which I know is still going to be under some decision with once the agreements and policies are approved by the Virginia Soil and Water Conservation Board. Did I also hear that you were mentioning that Clyde Chrisman was the one who had moved forward with making some of the adjustments and providing a little bit of leniency in the current year's grant agreements and the deliverables? Okay, thank you. I just wanted to make sure we captured the right name and that he had worked with the Soil and Water Conservation Board in order to make some of those adjustments. Really appreciate that. I'm glad that we've been able to move forward on some of these things. I think even with some of the modest changes that we've had to make, we've been able to continue to meet some of those agreements, but appreciate the leniency, certainly.
Well, an executive order 51 granted him that.
So that was Executive Order 51 had granted him that authority?
Yes.
Okay. Okay,
Clyde has been
great.
working very closely with Kendall and Don.
That's very much. And they should be actually, if I can make just a public statement and acknowledge their diligence in trying to gather as much information and be a resource. And I'm talking about Kendall and Don and the state association and be a resource for districts. Even just gathering information and passing it along to the OAG or providing a forum for conversation. It's been very, very much appreciated. And certainly I think many of the districts recognize that we're all in this together. And if we don't have to recreate the wheel or we can work together on preparing some of these materials, all the better. Debbie, if I may ask one more question, I know you had mentioned that the May 20th state board meeting was going to be looking at the last 3 months essentially of work. Do you happen to recall whether or not the Lake Barcroft WIDS budget is also on the agenda?
It is on the agenda. I saw it on the agenda.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you, Debbie. Is
My
Dr.
pleasure.
Kim still on from the Department of Forestry?
He's muted.
Or did we lose him? I hope not.
His microphone needs to be unmuted. There he is.
There we go. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Yes, I am still here. I have a couple of comments related to the murder hornets. I didn't want to break in to do that. I first heard about them on Saturday Night Live and thought they were a joke. So it is distressing. Last night, my beautiful wife Dina and I watched Sam Drogy's presentation on native bees and native plants and their shared phenology. And he started off by saying the problem with honeybees is disease and the problem with native bees is plants. Although honeybees are also, and his reference there was that we're not putting the right plants in the landscape to support the native bees when they are needed. But also Harry mentioned the mantises, and it's actually a good thing. It was probably an Asian mantis, a Chinese mantis you saw, because they far outnumber the Carolina mantises that are native. But an interesting thing is that those Chinese mantises have co-evolved with these pests we're bringing from China and from Asia. Yeah. And they were one of the first things to start eating brown marmorated stink bug because that was part of their diet back in China. So it may be if the Chinese mantis eat these murder hornets in Asia, they'll eat them here too. So it's not always a bad thing to have the non-native species here, especially if it's in biocontrol. The Department of Forestry is still operating pretty much on our regular schedule, despite COVID-19. Many years ago, we shifted to having a mobile workforce, so we were all prepared to not come to our offices, and that's what we have been instructed to do. We go in to print stuff, to pick up files, to check mail, and that's pretty much it. I think I've been into the office a few times since the beginning of April. But we are still going out and doing field work. One of the advantages that we have is a lot of what we do, we're out in the woods alone, and you can't get better social distancing than that. We do have, and I guess I haven't seen y'all since January, so I was looking back through it. I missed the February meeting because I was in Florida, and I missed the March meeting because I was teaching the Master Naturalists out in Loudoun County. And so since that time, we've had 4 Virginia Trees for Clean Water grants that have been awarded in the Northern Virginia area. I think one of them is in Arlington and the other 3 are in Fairfax. I know one went to the town of Herndon, and that project has been delayed until the fall. I've also done 7 Emerald Ash Borer grant applications where I go out and look at the trees and certify that they are healthy enough to cost share the treatment. One of those I did just this week at Mount Vernon, where they have some really, really big ash trees. And it was kind of weird being there because it was just me and Dean Norton, who is the arborist for Mount Vernon. So it's kind of nice being there without all the tourists. Going back to bugs, back in February, the Urban Forest Strike Team deployed to Winchester, where we marked over 12,000 ailanthus trees for the spotted lanternfly treatment this year. Hopefully we'll get out of this soon enough that we can actually do the treatment. We marked them either for destruction, if they were under 6 inches, or to be turned into trap trees for the spotted lanternfly. The trap trees are treated with a systemic insecticide so that when the lanternflies feed on them, they get killed. While we were out there, I actually collected an adult that had been feeding on an ailanthus and died in the freeze and was just stuck to the side of the tree. Other things. We mentioned the Giles Run project. I did get a communique from Mr. Darko with the Fairfax County Park Authority, who's asking me some technical questions about planting around some brick walks they found out there under the kudzu. So they are going forward on that project despite the COVID-19. Tree Commission. There has been some discussion between me, I am the vice chair of the Tree Commission, and Kathy Ledeck, who is the chairman of the Tree Commission, and Brian Keatley, who is our support. Talking about first with the new executive orders or the new orders that allow for meetings like we're having today. It looks like we're going to try and have a June meeting of the Tree Commission. We don't think we can get things set up for the regular May date. But we also are trying to find the silver lining to COVID-19. And one of the things we recognize is that people are doing a lot more of this. So they're more familiar with doing work over the internet via Zoom or Webex or something like that. So we may be trying to bring forward sort of a countywide tree forum that will occur on a quarterly basis. We haven't ironed out all those details yet, but we think we're going to continue doing this kind of stuff where we're doing outreach and education through the Tree Commission. And finally, we did get some good news in the budget at the Department of Forestry. For a long time, we have had a very active and very successful program supporting pine plantations and pine silviculture. And for the past 2 or 3 years, we've been working on developing a similar program for hardwoods. And I forget which term it is. There is money in the budget for a hardwood coordinator position with the Department of Forestry and $350,000 for a hardwood cost share or hardwood incentive program. Now, it's in the budget, but we don't have the money yet. If I remember correctly, that means it has been appropriated but not allocated, or the other way around. Anyway, we are moving forward on that. And we did develop a nice tool that we can use for hardwood assessment using money from mitigation money from the Mountain Valley Pipeline Project. And I think that's it.
Jim, any prospect hardwood projects might be up here?
There's certainly more prospect than the pine silviculture projects.
Yeah.
I have no idea what what this thing's going to look like. We haven't hired the coordinator, and I think his first job or her first job is going to be to develop the incentive program.
Right.
I think the money has been appropriated for next year in the second year of the biennial budget.
Jim, I think you meant it's been authorized, but it hasn't been appropriated.
There you go. I knew it began with an A. I couldn't remember which word, but yeah, it's been authorized. But until things shake out with the budget, we're not going to know what our authorization is.
And sometimes even after things have been appropriated, you don't always get them.
That's true. That's why I said it's just been we've just been authorized.
Mm-hmm. Anybody have any other questions for Jim?
I want to add on to what Jim said about the Tree Commission. I failed to bring up. I'm not sure our last meeting we were able to declare victory in getting the tree action plan passed. The last minutes I looked at was the day that the Board of Supervisors did adopt the tree action plan. So that was a big win for Jim and Ian and Monica and not Monica, the other people who worked on it. So, and we did have also, I think the last meeting we knew that we were going to have a tree charrette on the 12th of March, and both Laura and Adria came to that. Others, I think, might have been there too. Very interesting, very entertaining. It was the last meeting I was able to go to before the virus hit the fan. So that was good. And the report has been issued on that. I've not read it. Laura, Adrian, have you looked at that tree share report?
No, I don't. I haven't. I don't think I've seen it.
I haven't received anything.
Yeah.
Okay.
I got it.
Brian
Nope.
started sending it out, but didn't. Maybe he needs to do it again.
Maybe he sent it just out to the tree commission.
That's
That
a
may be.
possibility.
Maybe I'll check on that.
Okay.
Anything else, Jim or Jerry? Do we still have stormwater planning on, Katie?
Hi, I'm here. I have a couple of updates. Just a quick update on the Lake Barton dredging. The project is out for bid and they're expecting an award in summer, and also anticipate starting the drawdown then. So probably late summer that work will begin. Additionally, Stormwater Planning Division is always looking for new scoping sites for potential projects. So I know a lot of people have been spending a lot more time outside now. I know I have been to a bunch of streams. So we encourage anybody that's outside and, you know, comes upon a potential project, a potential stream for restoration, they can submit it through me or through our general mailbox and get it on our list to look at. Additionally, I know, I believe it was brought up earlier about trash. So our Stormwater Planning Division has a pilot project that was just installed called the Bandalon Litter Trap. It's in Little Hunting Creek, and it was installed, I believe, last month. And it's a pilot, so it's actually an in-stream structure that collects trash. Requires regular maintenance of basically people going there to empty it out. Our ecologists will be doing monitoring of the site as part of the pilot to better understand the maintenance requirements and also kind of what material they find. And I think they'll be putting together a report on that as well. And then I think we have partnered with several nonprofits and other agencies in the county on Operation Stream Shield, which employs some clients from some of the homeless centers or shelters in the area to go out and do some trash collection. And I think we're on temporary suspension of that program, but it will be starting up again. And they've done some really amazing work in keeping our stream valleys and other areas clear of trash. So we do have a lot of initiatives underway to help address litter.
I have a question on Lake Barton.
Yes.
You mentioned that they were going to start dredging this fall, you thought, this late summer?
Yes, I believe so. They'll go out to award in late in the summer for construction. Yes, and then they'll begin the drawdown of the lake.
You just answered my question. I was going to ask if the contract had been awarded yet.
Not yet. I believe so it'll probably be issued for bid soon, and then they anticipate the award in summer.
Thank you. Anybody have any questions? Laura, do we have any of the other partners on?
I think that is it for partners right now. It looks like Harry may have a question though. I did see his hand raised. Ashley, if you don't mind unmuting Harry. There you go, Harry.
Okay. You're going to be, you're in your home now?
Are you talking to me?
I'm going to give you a call in a few minutes, and I wanted to make sure that I got the right number. The last four digits are 9965.
Oh, yes.
Okay. I'll
Yes.
call you within the next 10 or 15 minutes.
Okay. Well, whenever we have a chance to wrap up, that would be fine.
Okay.
Look forward to it.
Does anybody have anything else they'd like to bring before the board?
John, I have just a few announcements that I'd like to
Okay.
make. And everybody has received a copy of our staff reports. And I just, again, this has been a really unusual time for all of us. We've all had to make, it seemed like in the very beginning, we were making a lot of cancellations, and now we're making a lot of like new things, or doing things that we have traditionally done in a new way. And so I'm really proud of our staff for kind of transitioning through a lot of these changes. I wanted to just mention that over the last couple of months, all of our team members have participated and done the Clifton Strength Finder assessment. And that has been really insightful in looking at what are all of our unique strengths that go along with just who we are and how we work. When we did a quick analysis of all of our different strengths, what we came to find is that as an organization from the staff side, we seem to fall within the main domain of strategic thinkers. Does that surprise anybody? Probably not, right? So what that essentially means from the Clifton Strength Finder perspective, and this is their words, and you may have heard me say it in a quite slightly different way. What it means is that we prepare the information that help others make decisions. And I think that goes very much hand in hand with just the way that we operate. We provide services and we provide information so that others can make informed decisions on their properties. But anyway, we've been really focusing a lot on doing a little bit of introspective work and doing some staff development, and that I think has been really a lot of fun. Maybe I just say that for myself. I should say I've enjoyed it. I don't know about everybody else, but they seem to be good sports. We had our 103rd green breakfast and our very first virtual green breakfast this past Saturday, and it featured Heather Ambrose with the Stormwater Planning Division sharing the MS4 program. I think after I saw that program and saw her presentation, and even though we've worked very closely with them for many years, it's really impressive to see the extent and the care and stewardship that Fairfax County is putting toward a lot of our streams and ensuring water quality and meeting the intended goals of the MS4 and Clean Water Act as well. It certainly isn't without its challenges, though, and in terms of trying to prioritize and ramping up to meet a wide variety of regulatory requirements. I did want to also just mention, I think Adria had touched base on it a little while ago, that we are transitioning our sustainable garden tour, annual garden tour, to a more virtual format this year. So stay tuned for that. There has been a lot of information we've been posting on social media and is also available on our website. Ashley has been going out and doing some work with our variety of our partners and taking some pictures and some videos as well. So that should be fun. And also the deadline for our poster contest has also been bumped back. We did set it originally to coincide with the end of the school year, but since we don't really have to do that now, it is being bumped back into the summer to give folks a little bit more time. I hate to say it, but even the Asian murder hornets is providing a little bit of insight and information, and has been a good way of being able to get some information out about bees and our pollinators, which help to support our poster contest goals. I also just wanted to mention, if you saw Heather's report, one of the things that she always does is provide a list of the wide variety of different kinds of phone calls or emails that we get. And one of the things that you'll notice between our March timeframe and our April timeframe is the number of correspondences, whether they're emails or phone calls, has not really changed all that much in terms of total numbers. But what you'll find is that there is quite a difference in terms of the topics that people are inquiring about. And some of it is driven very much by the news. So back in March, you might recall there was an article in the newspaper about backyard chickens. So we have some information. Willie is a wonderful resource on backyard on chickens and has provided some insights. And so we had 10 calls about chickens, which is like a huge leap in terms of the number of calls and inquiries that we get about chickens on an annual basis. So it is interesting. I think you're absolutely right. I can't recall who exactly said it, but folks are getting outside. They're starting to see what's possible within their own properties. They're starting to utilize things like iNaturalist and other things to identify what they have. They're using resources and they are being sponges right now. They are really hungry for information. And I'm glad that we're providing a wide variety of different options and working with a wide variety of different partners to be able to not just entertain, because that's not the point, but to inform so that they can make good decisions. So with that, that's all I've really got. Again, I just wanted to commend our staff for continuing to support the organization and support our mission, and continuing to be creative and thoughtful about the kinds of things that they're looking into so that we can continue to carry on. So
Thank you, Laura. Before we adjourn, though, let me apologize to almost everybody. I think some of you got some spam emails from me today asking you to call me or me to call you or something. I just got a note here from John Gagnon asking about that too. That was actually spam. If you looked at that closely, it was not my email address. And I've been getting a lot of those addressed from Kendall and from Richard Chafin and others on the state association. So I'm wondering if somehow at the last call we had, somebody got a hold of a bunch of us. But at any rate, that was not me, and I appreciated those who inquired. If there's nothing else to come before the board, is there a motion that we adjourn?
Oh, no, let's keep it going. I would move to adjourn. Jerry.
Motion to adjourn, is there a second?
I'll second. This is Chris.
Any further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye. We don't need to. We are adjourned. Thank you all. I think it went very well for the first attempt, and thank Laura and the staff.
thank you all very much. Thank you.
Great job.
Thank you.